A massive coronary last year robbed British industry of one of its most colourful figures, Sir Tom Crittenden. Knighted in 1966 for his services to industry, Sir Tom laid the foundations of his fortune mining for copper in the Belgian Congo. His will left half his assets to his wife, Lady Dorothy, the other half to be divided equally between his children, Bernard and Kate. But in the December following his death, a young man turned up in London, also claiming to be Sir Tom's son by an early marriage in Africa. Today, however, in Fulchester Crown Court, that same young man, Raoul Lapointe, stands accused of obtaining money by deception. Miss Helen Tate, prosecuting, is attempting to show that he is an impostor who set out to derive financial benefit by representing himself as Sir Tom's son.
Wilfred Bowers, senior partner in the firm Bowers, Hartley and Bowers Solicitors, and you live at Overton House, Fulchester.
Yes.
Were you connected with the late Sir Tom Crittenden, Mr. Bowers?
I was. For over 20 years, my firm had the privilege of acting as family solicitors to Sir Tom.
And do you still maintain connections with the Crittenden family?
I do. After Sir Tom's death, Lady Dorothy asked me to represent her interests. From time to time, Mr. Bernard is good enough to approach me for advice, too. And I'm also an executor of Sir Tom's estate.
Mr. Bowers, have you ever met the accused in this case, Raoul Lapointe?
I have. Oh, yes, indeed. On the 10th of December last, that would be about a month after Sir Tom's death, I received a letter from Mr. Lapointe saying that he had just arrived in London from Kinshasa and had something of the greatest urgency to discuss with me. He said it concerned Sir Tom Crittenden and the matter of his will.
Kinshasa being the Congolese town formerly known as Leopoldville, before independence.
That's right.
Mr. Bowers, before we go any further, I wonder if you could tell me the value of Sir Tom Crittenden's estate. I have a feeling it to be of great help to us.
Why, we're still trying to clear things up, my lord. Even so long after the event, Sir Tom's interests were greatly diversified, you understand.
An approximation would do, Mr. Bowers.
Then, in round figures, I should say Sir Tom was worth £12 million when he died. Before duty, that's to say.
And how did the will dispose of these assets?
Oh, in the simplest manner. There were certain bequests, then half to Lady Dorothy outright, the other half to be divided equally between his living legitimate offspring.
His living legitimate offspring. Those were the terms of the will.
Yes.
I see. So it means, in fact, that with duty paid, the living legitimate offspring, whoever they might be, could look forward to something like £5 million to be shared among them.
Yes.
That is a considerable sum of money, Mr. Bowers.
Quite, my lord.
Very well.
Mr. Bowers, did Raoul Lapointe come to see you in your chambers after his initial approach to you by letter?
Yes, he did. Exactly a week later, it was, on December the 17th.
And what did he tell you on that occasion?
He said that he was the son of an early marriage between Sir Tom Crittenden and an African woman in the Katanga district of the Congo. He said the marriage had ended in divorce and that his mother was now dead, but that he was the legitimate son of his father and therefore, under the terms of the will, entitled to a share of the estate.
And what was your response to that, Mr. Bowers?
Well, in the first place, I was simply astounded. I wondered if I might not be in the presence of a dangerous lunatic. Sir Tom had never on any occasion said anything to me about a youthful marriage, let alone a child of it.
Never on any occasion?
No.
Had Mr. Lapointe anything to support his claim at that time?
In a sense. He had a couple of documents. The first was a marriage certificate naming the parties as one Mary Caballo of Sampwe Katanga and Thomas Alfred Crittenden of Birmingham, England. The officiating minister and acting registrar had subscribed himself the Reverend August Van Helm, Baptist Mission Sampwe. The date on this certificate was March the 21st, 1946.
And the other document?
That was a birth certificate dated May the 2nd, 1947. It recorded the birth of a male child, Raoul Edouard, and gave the names of the mother and father just as on the marriage certificate. Again, the acting registrar was August Van Helm. After the names Raoul Edouard on the certificate, however, the surname Lapointe had been entered in brackets in what seemed to me to be a different hand.
Mr. Bowers, will you look at these documents, please? Are these the documents shown to you by Lapointe?
Yes.
My lord, may these documents be entered as exhibits. The marriage certificate as Exhibit 1 and the birth certificate as Exhibit 2.
Yes, indeed. But to one of these documents, some kind of investigatory report seems to be attached.
That is so, my lord. It is an agreed document. I'll come to it in due course.
I see. Thank you, Miss Tate.
So, Mr. Bowers, what did you do about these documents?
I got in touch with the Attorney General's Department of the Zaire Legation in London. Zaire is the modern name for the Congo. I asked for expert help, sent off the documents, and by the end of January, I had an official reply on my desk.
Which stated?
Why, that as far as the Zaire authorities could discover, both documents were completely genuine.
As far as the Zaire authorities could discover?
Well, things were difficult, for by all accounts. Their country had been through several major upheavals since the dates concerned, and particularly in the case of Katanga, things still remained in a critical state of disorganization. It was plain there'd been a marriage anyway, if only because the divorce file still existed in Kinshasa. I was sent a photostat of it. The date of the decree was January the 14th, 1947.
What was that date again?
January the 14th, 1947, my lord.
But that is only 10 months after the date of marriage.
Yes, my lord.
I see.
Mr. Bowers, were you reasonably satisfied that Raoul Lapointe was what he said he was, a son of the late Sir Tom Crittenden by an earlier marriage in Africa?
Oh, no. I wasn't satisfied in the least about that.
Why not?
Well, whatever the truth of the marriage, it was simply impossible to check anything regarding the birth of the child Raoul Edouard, you see. The Baptist mission at Saint-Pouet had long ceased to exist, put to the torch during the tribal fighting, and all records destroyed so far as we could discover. Then again, even if the statement had been true about there being a birth certificate, how on earth were we to know if the man who had turned up calling himself Raoul Lapointe was actually the individual concerned?
Did the accused attempt to explain his difference in surname, at the same time claiming to be the son of Sir Tom Crittenden?
Yes, he said that Sir Tom had made a generous settlement on his mother at the time of the divorce, but only on condition that she agreed his child would never bear his name publicly. The bracketed name Lapointe on the birth certificate was therefore in the mother's hand, evidence of her compliance with this demand.
I see. And what was the next development, Mr. Bowers?
Oh, I informed Lady Dorothy of Mr. Lapointe's advent. In mid-January, I invited her to my office to meet him quite informally, and she brought her children Bernard and Kate.
What was discussed at this meeting?
Oh, very little. I told Lapointe that I was still waiting to hear from the Zaire authorities. Lady Dorothy requested simply that there should be no publicity until matters were settled one way or the other, when she might choose to make an announcement herself.
Did you see Lapointe again after that?
Yes, Mr. Lapointe called on me again and said he was critically short of money and could I advance him some.
Did you do that, Mr. Bowers?
Yes, on February the 9th I let him have £1,000.
And that was the end of it?
No, 3 weeks later he called on me again. This time he said he needed the deposit on a flat to set himself up in reasonable style pending his settlement, which, in the absence of any unexpected opposition, was still more and more secure. Therefore, on the 28th of February, I advanced him a further £5,000.
Making 6,000 in all?
6,000 in all.
Was this money belonging to the estate, Mr. Bowers?
Oh, good gracious, no. No, I mentioned it to Lady Dorothy, and she authorized us to make the payment on her behalf.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers.
Mr. Bowers, did you carry on with your inquiries after you had advanced money to my client?
No.
Why not?
Mr. Bernard asked if he might have Lapointe's certificates for forensic tests.
And you let Mr. Bernard have the certificates?
Yes?
When was that, please?
Oh, about February the 3rd.
And he kept them until when?
Early March, when everything changed again.
Quite. You didn't think of carrying on with your inquiries without the certificates. Why not?
Well, Lady Dorothy suggested that Mr. Bernard's inquiries might render further work unnecessary, and I thought she was obviously right.
I see. Mr. Bowers, if you had pursued your inquiries into Raoul Lapointe by sending representatives to West Africa, what form would these inquiries have taken precisely?
Well, I thought it might be of advantage to establish the fate of the Baptist mission at Saint-Pouet, if that were possible, and particularly what had happened to the old missionary, Auguste van Helm. I thought if he was still alive, he might be able to help us a good deal.
Oh, in what way?
Well, Mr. Lapointe said that the mission had educated him up to the age of 16. After his mother, there was no one he trusted more than Van Helm. In 1962, however, came the Katanga riots and his mother was killed. European missionary foundations were especially at risk. Mr. Lapointe simply had to flee to Kinshasa. He never heard of Saint-Pouet or Auguste Van Helm again.
Mr. Bowers, were you personally responsible for drawing up Sir Tom Crittenden's will?
Sir Tom and I drew it up together, yes.
Was it Sir Tom's idea, then, to describe his children merely as living legitimate offspring?
Yes. Yes, as I recall, he insisted on that wording.
Why? Wouldn't you say that was a strange wording? Seeming to imply that there might be illegitimate children, perhaps, or even other legitimate children who might in due time arise and lay claim to an inheritance.
Nonsense. Sir Tom wasn't a devious man in referring to his children as living legitimate offspring. He was no doubt simply indulging his well-known passion for clarity and accuracy. Long years in the business world had taught him the importance of clear definition.
You're convinced, then, that if Sir Tom had fathered a son by an early marriage in Africa, he would have acknowledged the fact cheerfully and even made open provision in his will for the boy?
Of course. Why not? He would have had nothing to be ashamed of. Sir Tom was an honourable man.
I see, Mr. Bowers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers.
You may leave the box, Mr. Bowers.
I call Lady Dorothy Crittenden, my lord.
Lady Dorothy Crittenden, please.
What is your religion?
Church of England.
Take the book in your right hand and read aloud the words on the card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You're Lady Dorothy Crittenden of 84 Court Street, Fulchester, and also of the Penningtons, Burton Cross, Somerset.
That's correct.
Lady Dorothy, in December of last year, you were approached by your solicitor, Wilfred Bowers, with information which might be described as a novel character.
I was. Mr. Bowers called on me to say he'd been contacted by a young man called Raoul Lapointe, who claimed to be the son of my late husband, Sir Tom Crittenden, by an earlier marriage to an African woman in the Congo.
And did you subsequently meet Raoul Lapointe, the accused, and in his presence did you give Mr. Bowers certain instructions?
I did. I told him he was to investigate the young man's claim fully and fairly, without prejudice. That's how much of a fool I was. That young man is an impostor and a fraud. He deserves no consideration from decent people or from this court. Raoul Lapointe is a liar and a thief.